welcome to a brand new spoiler review episode for Ms. Marvel here, brought to you by the
Geek
Buddies!
Hey! We should go sepia tone right now as we're going back in time to talk about this particular episode 5. Time and again here from, is it time and again? Is that, time and again here from Ms. Marvel. So always want to be correct on that here. We're going to talk about all of it, break it all down, but let's introduce ourselves first. I'm the Outlaw John Roca, writer, producer, and host here on the Outlaw Nation of the Geek Buddies.
I am Michael Vogel, writer and producer of animated TV shows and movies. You can currently see Strawberry Shortcake on Netflix, and I can tell you about the other stuff I'm doing, but I would get fired from my job.
No one wants that. Shannon, what do you got?
And this is Shannon McClung. I'm a television actor and an animation writer where I also work on Strawberry Shortcake. And I know some stuff about Vogel's career, and if the price is right, I will sing like a canary.
Wow.
Wow, put it on the table.
Hope you enjoy getting disinvited to that next writer's summit there,
and yeah, if you sing like a canary, that's probably because you've got something wrong with your voice. If you want to get checked out, you want to go get checked out at carbonhealth.com. That's where you go.
Oh, look at that.
Carbonhealth.com. Go and support them. Go and get your healthcare questions, concerns, and needs addressed by them. They've got 125 locations worldwide, nationwide, 80 plus locations here in California alone. Do all the COVID testing, do all the things that you need. They've got urgent care at all their locations, primary care at most of their locations, and they do virtual care as well for those of you who cannot leave the house, or maybe you can't get to a physical location. They can help you out as well. Also, they got an app for Carbon Health. Download that app so you have a doc in your pocket there for any healthcare questions or concerns you have during your day. But go to carbonhealth.com and get checked out today. All right, let's get into this thing. Time and again, episode 5. We're now going to get the partition story and see everything that happens here with Kamala's grandparents and everything that happened. We've been alluding to. Sana's been talking about now. Sana brought them to Karachi. We had these interactions with the Red Dagger now. Now we've got to see a little bit more. We're going back in time. And Michael, overall thoughts on this episode here as the penultimate episode before we get to the finale of season 1?
I really, really liked it. I have a couple of minor issues with the end and a little bit of confusion, but I thought it was great. I liked it so much that it didn't even bother me that it broke all of the MCU's time travel rules.
That seems a little more than minor, but all right. Shannon, overall thoughts on this episode here, time and again in season 1?
Like Vogel, I really enjoyed aspects of it, but I think with the resolution, it did expose some weaker parts of the show, which I imagine we will all agree upon, but still what we got, I really, really enjoyed.
I think the strength, I kind of feel the same way you guys do. I think the strength of the show lied in in Aisha and Hasan and their relationship too. Fantastic and well-renowned, by the way, Pakistani actors, Mehwish Hayat and Fawad Khan, who were fantastic with great chemistry. We were able to see the struggles of India, 1942 versus 1947, I think, when they finally get their independence. And those of us who've watched Gandhi and love Gandhi as a movie, we've already had a little bit of knowledge about partition. And thanks to one of our followers who sent us that 17-minute video that gave us even more knowledge about partition and what happened there. And we get to see all of that. But it's really the family stuff that works so well here. When we go back to present time, for me, I start to see, as Shannon pointed out, the cracks, the strains, and the limitations of Iman Vellani as an actress, sadly. And this is because, hey, look, this is her first thing. You're putting a lot of weight on her, and I think we're seeing some cracks here as we get into the more emotional and the heavier stuff that's happening here, and that's concerning me as we go into the finale. But everything with Aisha and Hasan was stellar, and I wanted more of that too. I wanted this episode to be an hour of just them, to be honest with you. So, Michael, let's deal with that. Let's just deal with that because that's 20 minutes of this episode here. leading up into Kamala showing up there on the platform. So let's talk about this. What do you think? We get the clandestine. We get Aisha kind of with the bangle. She's clearly wanting to keep her space, but Hasan wins her over. We jump forward in time. She's pregnant. We see the birth of Sana. We see her with the bangle. We hear about the poem, which leads to the inscription, and we get to the platform where once again Hajma tries to destroy another family. So we're seeing that now when she first did it versus when we saw her doing it when she's the one that hits the bango that led us into this memory. So talk to me about those first 20 minutes.
Well, I mean, I agree with what you were saying, which is I think a lot of times the executive opinion of geeks watching these shows is that when you get to an episode like this that is dealing with ancestors, past characters, love stories, family stuff, emotional stuff, that this is where we tune out. And I agree with you that I think that has been the strength of this show for the entirety of the run. And I think there's no difference here. I think that the love story between Aisha and Hasan was absolutely spectacular and delivered on everything they've been building up to. I think that, you know, this whole who is my great grandmother? Why does she have this reputation? What really happened? What is the backstory that happened at partition with this path of stars that saved Sana and got her back to Hasan? Like, there's just been a mystery around it that we know is super important that ties into obviously Kamala and her heritage, but also Muneeba, her mom, and her relationship with her mother, and just like this entire family, their generational history. And so much of what Kamala's journey has been throughout the series is, in addition to being someone who just is obsessed with Captain Marvel and wants to be a superhero and wants to be part of that hero life, it's also someone who kind of is living in two worlds. I mean, she's grown up in America, but she has this Pakistani heritage. And then she goes to Pakistan and she's seen as too American. And she's sort of in this two different worlds. And where do I fit? And who am I supposed to be? And this story, in a really kind of lovely, beautiful way, answers all of this with this amazing love story. And I do think, John, you're right. Like both actors, Aisha and Hasan, like just really understated but lovely. Like nothing was over the top. It just felt very grounded and organic. The story just chugged along like really, really, really well. You know, when Nadja came along and was talking to Aisha, first of all, that woman radiates danger in just a look.
She's so good at this role.
Like she's just looking at Aisha, and Aisha's like, "Oh yeah, no, I'm just hanging out," and she's like,
"Oh, so this is where you've been, huh?"
Oh, and then hugs her, and I was like, "I'm so glad." I'm like, I don't trust this woman a bit. But also, you know, like just exposes the lie that she told Kamala, which we all already knew this woman was no good. But like, you know, when she was like, "Oh yeah, we lost Aisha, we've been looking for her ever since," and you're like, "Okay, well, no, that's not exactly true." But so yeah, it all handled really well. And honestly, you know, we talk a lot about it with the Star Wars shows, we talk about it at the Marvel shows. When the special effects are rocking, when they're not, when you see the limitations of TV budgets, when you don't, everything with that partition scene just felt epically huge.
Oh yeah.
I mean, like getting all the way to this scene where, you know, like we've been told so much about how overwhelming it was and just this refugee crisis that happened during partition and just, you know, how bad it was, but really kind of bringing it to life the way they did, I thought was really, really great. It felt so epic in scope.
Yeah. Shannon, talk to me about those first 20 minutes. I mean, we start with a newsreel, which is kind of almost like Citizen Kane-ish, because that's how Citizen Kane starts, with a little bit of a newsreel to give you a background, give you an idea, the sepia tone into the Marvel thing. So we're going back in time. It becomes like this TV screen, the 4x3 old school TV screen. And then we hear about Prime Minister Nehru, who gets appointed Prime Minister of India. Then we hear about the break here and exactly what they referred to in the last episode. An old white British dude decides to cut this country in half between Pakistan and India and causes all this drama here. And we see it play out in the village where by the end of their time there, you know, nobody wants to buy Aisha's milk. Hasan can't sell his flowers, his roses, which were the source of pride in the first few minutes of the episode. So we're seeing that even playing out in a micro scale as it's playing out in a macro scale. And then what it leads to, and Hajma showing up again, and then her telling him the truth about everything. And instead of him being freaked out, he's like, "You chose us, and that's what matters, and that's why I love you." So it's even more powerful. What do you think about the first 20 minutes, man?
I thought it was lovely. I think one of the greatest services this show has done has been to expose Western audiences to this treasure trove of actors from Bollywood, like people that we don't necessarily know. I mean, we got it last episode with the character of Waleed, who was played by, I think his name was Farhan Akhtar.
Right.
But then this week as well with Fawad Khan and Maywish Hyatt, who, how much she reminded me, and maybe this is just me projecting, but how much she reminded me of Muneeba. They both just had a similar cadence to their speech, but just this really brief but really lovely love story, and sort of encapsulating that person from two worlds and how they were able to create something that was bigger than both of them. Just really, I mean, both of those actors just have incredible screen presence that you just like. And even with Fawad Khan, I was just like, I feel like I've seen this guy before. Like, there's no reason I shouldn't have seen this guy before. And I looked up his IMDb and I'm like, no, I don't recognize any of these credits.
Yeah.
But the fact that they were able to pull you in and get you so invested in such a short amount of time, I mean, that is a credit not just to the performers, but to the director and the writers as well. So yeah, I really, really super enjoyed it. And as you guys were talking about the scope of the train station, that scene was, I mean, it's so much to take in. It's almost a little overwhelming because you're dealing with the physical scope, but you're also dealing with the emotional scope. You're dealing with these, oh gosh, it's gonna get me emotional. You're dealing with people being ripped apart. And it just hits so hard. So yeah, I mean, I thought the strength of this episode, the strength of the series has always been Kamala's family, but the strength of this episode is definitely in the beginning.
Right. Laying the groundwork of why this family is such a tight family, but also a family with mysteries and secrets. And certainly the Sana and Muneeba stuff was teased last episode, their division, where Muneeba had all these stories and was the crazy lady in a way. And Sana had all these stories and was the crazy lady. And Muneeba ran from that to America to kind of build her own identity. But now coming back, all this stuff is there for her to explore and to see. And yeah, I love the opening 20 minutes. Absolutely loved it. I mean, as I said, I could have had even more time with them. I actually was a little upset they didn't spend more time with them and lay a little more groundwork, have some more scenes, get more into the political stuff that was going on here. We jumped so quickly in time. We jumped so quickly to them meeting, getting pregnant, obviously marrying, and then what happens to them politically. But there could have been more explored here that would have been very interesting as a history lesson to people. But, you know, that's not necessarily the job of this show. But it does give you enough background so you understand the sides of things, at least on a surface level, so you can go and do your own research for it. So I like that. And then we get to the train. So let's jump to that. The next sequence here is we get to the train. Hajma shows up. Aisha senses that Hajma is there.
Najma.
Sends Hasan. I'm trying to say Hasan and Najma at the same time. My apologies. It senses that Najma is there. Sends Sana ahead with Hasan, which she senses the trouble there. Najma shows up. They have an exchange, and Najma is mad that Aisha has turned on her own people. Where have we heard that before recently in a certain show? And stabs her and essentially sends her down the path to being killed. Looks for the bangle. Kamala shows up and has the connection here, sees Aisha, finds her, has the exchange. Aisha tells her to please take care of Sana. And then we see her find Sana and start to use her powers to help Sana. But in the end, it's the bangle that creates the stars that leads Sana to Hasan, and they get on the train. So let's talk about that whole sequence, because she realizes that it was her that was the person who went back there and created the Trail of Stars for Sana. So, Michael, I'm going to go back to you again. Normally I would go to Shannon on the next, but I'll go to you on this because you mentioned this. They broke the time loop situation here. So explain that here, because I was a little like, what? Wait, what? What just happened?
Well, so first of all, I think a lesson that we can take from Disney Plus is that daggers are more fatal than lightsabers. So important thing for people to know, just as a safety thing, like if it's particularly with carbon health and everything we do, if someone is coming at you with a dagger, you should be way more concerned than you should be about a lightsaber, because lightsabers is just kind of like a rough gut. Just kind of patch that thing up, you'll be fine. A dagger, you will be dead in seconds. So important life lesson brought to you from the Geek Buddies. So look, I think that, and again, I think the emotional impact of Aisha sort of calling out and Kamala coming to her through time and being the one that kind of set her grandmother on this path and rescued her, that becomes this whole family story that sort of, like, there is a beauty to it. So what I'm going to say on the nerd side, I don't think takes away from the fact that emotionally, this was a beautiful moment, and I think it landed so well. And in a show that is built so much around who you want to be and your family heritage and superhero, you know, like I'll get to the time travel thing in 1 second, but just like in the very first episode when Kamala comes home and her mom and Muneeba is like, do you want to be the good girl that I raised, or do you want to be this cosmic crazy in the clouds person?
Right.
And the fact that Kamala finds out that her family's history and heritage and who she is also this cosmic head in the clouds girl, and it's the same person, I think is just so poetically beautiful. That being said, let's talk about how Marvel has defined time travel. In Endgame, Bruce Banner makes it very, very clear that you can't go into the past and change your present, because once you go into the past, your present is your future. He explains this whole thing.
Wait a minute. You told me Back to the Future is bullshit? Is that what you're trying to tell me?
Anyway, fucking Back to the Future. So basically the way Avengers sets everything up is if you go back in time and you do something, that doesn't affect the present at all. It just kind of takes things off into in another timeline. Then what we learn is that the TVA has been pruning timelines to keep things on track. And so that's how we like sort of don't have an entire multiverse of things happening, because that's what would result in that. And then by the end of Loki, Kang comes along, fucks everything up, or actually I guess Loki fucks everything up and sets us off on where we're the multiverse. All of that being said, nowhere in what Marvel sets up do you get the lovely time loop of, my family has had this entire story my entire life, but it was always me who went back, because in Marvel terms, if Kamala did get called back to Aisha, it wouldn't affect her present. That would be a separate timeline. Right. So with everything going on, I was looking online. There's been a lot of discussion around this. There is some thought that with everything going on in the MCU, the clandestine being, you know, kind of related to Jinn and kind of outside our dimension, maybe are extra dimensional beings that can handle timelines differently than everyone else does. But regardless of everything, I think this does kind of fall under the category of Phase 4 has a lot of shit going on and not everything is syncing up. Yeah. So that is, you know, from a Marvel nerd MCU standpoint, the time travel that happens here doesn't seem to wash with what's going on in the rest of the MCU. But again, as I said, emotionally, and for this story specifically, if I was the showrunner, I'd probably go for it anyway. Like, it works so well that it's almost like time travel rules be damned. But then, of course, as a nerd, I'm like, well, except I need an explanation because this doesn't really make sense. So that's where that all lands.
Fair enough. Shannon, thoughts on everything that happened on the platform here, the time loop situation, and Kamala realizing that she's been the one all along who was the creator of the stars that led Sana back to Hasan and essentially guaranteed her creation down the road.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, this was something that I thought about last week when we were talking. I was like, I wonder if Kamala is going to be the one to save Sana. But thinking of the established MCU time travel rules, I'm like, well, no, that wouldn't actually make sense. And, you know, as Vogel said, emotionally it pays off. I did really like that. I do think emotionally Iman Vellani does. This is a strong performance. Specifically when she's dealing with Sana, not so much with Aisha. I feel like those deeper emotional moments that she as a younger person maybe does not have that experience to call upon yet.
Yeah.
I think that might be showing in the performance that she's having to fabricate some of this. And that's where it might come off a little inauthentic. Whereas the rest of her performance, because she is so convincingly playing a kid, because she is a kid.
Yeah.
But the moment that she rescues Sana, I don't know if Iman Vellani has younger cousins or has younger siblings, but that exchange,
Yes.
I was 100% back on board with. She's like,
I
I can't create stars. I hope you're okay with circles.
Yeah.
And then watching how as Sana is stepping and then the stare, the hard light stare shatters, and Sana is the one manipulating the shards. I thought that was just a really really beautiful moment. And when Aisha, I was a little fuzzy, and maybe you guys can help me. Did Aisha summon Kamala, or did the knife from Najma activate the time travel powers of the bangle? It seemed
I
like
think that's what it seems to me, that it activated.
That's what I thought at first. But then Aisha, when Kamala shows up, and Aisha thought like, oh, it worked. That to me seemed like, oh, okay, is this something she actively did? I do think there are moments in the series thus far that there has been a lack of specificity. That would help. Sure. But the audience,
it's not about
by and large,
spoon feeding either. It's not about spoon feeding. It's about
No. It's being deliberately vague. It's you don't have to make a choice.
Yeah, I think that's real. I think that's really what it is. So I think that, and again, Thor: Love and Thunder just came out. Multiverse of Madness came out recently. I think that there are a host of examples in the MCU currently where we could put a lot of things under the category of you chose not to choose. And I think when it comes to Ms. Marvel, everything about the clandestine and Noor and exactly how this all works, and we're going to get into the ending of this episode in a minute, and this comes up a lot there too, it's a little fuzzy. And I think a lot of times what happens is, and this is kind of what I was saying about the emotional impact, when you're a writer, you're more focused on, is this emotionally satisfying? And all of the time travel, space travel, hyperspace, hard light, Zeus's lightning bolt, whatever you want to use, is really just the tool that you're going to use to get to telling this emotional story about love, about family, about identity, about whatever. And so I think that when you're watching Ms. Marvel, they have completely nailed the identity, who am I, where do I fit in? It works really well. I think for all those reasons, it's Aisha that calls Kamala. Like Aisha calls out to Kamala, calls out for help, and Kamala comes to her, and
who's
Aisha's
already
like,
there.
And Aisha's like, I need you to do this. I need you to help. This is super important. I think it also ties into the end where Najma calls out to her son.
Kamran,
but seemingly to use him. And again, it gets very fuzzy, so we'll get there in a minute. But I think the comparison of what Aisha does with Kamala and what Najma does with Kamran is very interesting.
Is there a bomber going over your
roof,
John?
Welcome to San Diego.
You know what?
Is that yours or mine? Is that
I
yours?
think that was mine. I think that the garbage guy just went by, but I must have had a lot of garbage.
That sounded like a helicopter.
I think it was. We've had a few of those recently over here in San Diego. I mean, remember, I'm close to wherever Del Mar. I'm close there. So where Top Gun shoots was from. So you'll see every once in a while. But I agree with you, Mike. And this is the thing that in that sequence, I think I agree with you, Shannon, too. The sweetness between her and Sana, Kamala and Sana, was really nice to see. Aisha's up. I feel like she didn't step up to like quite as powerfully with the Aisha stuff, but an interesting change that Aisha can put the power into the bangle, her power into the bangle. So kind of laying the groundwork for what Najma is going to do later on here in a few minutes to Kamran. So interesting to see her being able to do that, and then what that leads to down the road, and dying, and then Hasan and Sana taken off. So
but then again, also, and this is some of that confusion is they make such a point earlier in the season about the clandestine can't use their Noor, but that the hybrid children, the demigods, however you want to put it, but like the Kamran and Ms. Marvel, because they are of two worlds, Sana as well,
and Sana,
are able to access it, so that when Aisha does what she does with the bangle, there's a little bit of like, Wait, what if you know how this works?
Yeah.
So, and again, emotionally, I bought all in. I was super invested. I was like, this is a great moment. But the pseudo comic book science of it all left me a little confused, a little
wishy-washy.
A little wishy-washy. Fair enough. Well, when we get back, we end up getting back to present day. Everybody wakes back up in the dead end situation here, and we see Najma, we see who was the other character, Fariha. We see this whole situation going down with them. We see that Muneeba's trying to find Sana, and the male cousin is like, you ever used Find Your Phone? And she's like, what? Oh, how come you never told me about this? So they go and they're off to try to find Kamala, but this situation pops off, and we see a veil show up there where Kamala and Najma are. And Fariha walks towards the veil because Najma says, oh my God, we can go home now. And Fariha's immediately eviscerated something like out of Raiders of the Lost Ark. So there's this conversation about what to do next. And Najma says, because Kamala says, well, you have your son. Don't go into this. You have your son. You can stay for your son. You can love your son. Don't ruin that family too. You tried to ruin my family. Keep this family intact. You're showing a heroic moment there from Kamala there. And so it's great. But then Najma says, oh, no, I can't. I left him behind, but I know how to make it up to him. And so she walks into the veil and sends her power to Kamran first before she sacrifices herself. So a little bit of a letdown. Muneeba comes in with Sana there. The Red Dagger guy is there too. They have an exchange. She's like, who is he? They have a quick conversation. Then Muneeba realizes that Kamala is Ms. Marvel. She's the light girl, as she says. Kamala uses her powers to go and talk to Red Dagger. They have a back and forth, which kind of lays the groundwork. Like in the comics, he comes over to the States. So he says, hey, I can come over if you need me, even though I may be wanted in the States. They have a nice exchange there. But most of all, it's that picture that Kamala shows Sana of her mother and father, Muneeba's grandmother and grandfather, that kind of brings them together. And Muneeba and Sana kind of put their weapons down, their shields down with each other. And you have this great moment where all three of them hug. Which is beautiful. And then later we have Kamran talking to Bruno, asking for his help in this situation. Is this how Kamran is going to become the villain? Because he is in the comics because of the fact that his mom died in the kind of get back at Kamala. I don't know. So what did you think, Shannon, about these two scenes here at the dead end with the veil, and then later on with Kamran and Bruno?
See, this is where I think the weakness of the episode is really apparent, because the clandestines have been so sort of loosely defined in terms of who they are, what they do, where this Noor dimension, like, what is it exactly? This is your home, but you were exiled long enough ago that there is text written about you that Yusuf talks about in episode 2, I think. And the moment that Fariha goes up and immediately becomes a skeleton, and Najma has had a couple of whiplash-like character turns. Where, I mean, in the first, you kind of believe it at the beginning that she's being super sweet because Kamala has something that she wants. She goes to villainy, which we all expected, but it is so mustache twirly villainy. And then she kind of flips the script again, saying, well, I can do something for Kamran. And I do think when Iman Vellani is saying, you destroyed one family, don't destroy another. I do think, again, this is exposing some of the holes in her game. And I think this is probably just that lack of experience, that she doesn't have those life events to pull from. So you're having to kind of, spin it whole cloth. The moment that Muneeba and Sana show up, that scene with the cousins where she's kind of like, if I could ship my child, I would. I mean, Zenobia Shroff is, to me, is just so funny. I mean, she's great. And the moment that, you're seeing sort of the aftermath of this tear in reality that's been repaired, And she's like, Kamala, what? You're the light girl? And then when she sees Red Dagger, like, who's that? She immediately goes into protective mom mode, which I thought was super, super fun and super sweet. You know, I'm not a fan of Aramis Knight's performance in this. So the scene in between him and Kamala at the end where he's just like, you know, I'm a call away if you need help, even though the American government has warrants out for my arrest. I'm kind of like, let's get past this guy. When they get to them looking at Muneeba's old photos, and you get you get the connection. It's like she truly is Kamala's mom. I mean, this is, you know, like I had that Wild Street too. Me and your dad, we had adventures too. And they sort of justify it where she's just like, look, you know, we had our adventures and I've just had a hard time letting you go. And so it's from a character standpoint, you're sort of justifying like, that's why she did all this. And now the fact that she knows that her daughter does have these abilities, that she's open to it. But I imagine we have not seen the end of Yusuf and Muneeba being very protective of their daughter. Like, I think this probably will bleed over into future projects. Getting to Kamran and Bruno, I loved this scene. I thought this was so great, where Kamran really was just like, oh my God, your name's not Brian.
I thought for sure for weeks it was Brian. My bad, man.
I mean, I thought that was so nice. I really liked getting to see these guys bond, and I think it ends a little weak as well, that we see that drone. Kamran is able to blast it, and then it fires a missile, but it almost seems like an accident. And then it blows up the convenience store, and that's sort of a hard cut to black. So, I mean, I just feel like the weakness of the show has been the who is the antagonist here,
right?
Yeah. What's the big plan? Like the damage control, we know what their plan is. But you have one performer who has been underutilized, and another performer who, in my opinion, is And the clandestines, it's just been loosely defined. Like, we don't really know who or what they are. But still, across the board, I mean, I don't think it's reaching that WandaVision or Hawkeye level, but I still really like it.
Yeah, I find that too. I find that the first 3 episodes really got me, and these last 2 have been kind of stumbling, even though there are some nice scenes with the family and real connective tissues there, and the history of Kamala's family. All of that works, but when the present day stuff, especially with the clandestine, it just seems to be a bit cartoonish at times, and we don't have that real solid, strong. I mean, I know some people have been complaining that Thor: Love and Thunder has a little bit of a kiddie bent to it, but at least Bale brings some legitimate, chilling moments in that film, in my opinion. Whereas here, well, okay, here we go. Whereas here,
I'm with you, John.
Yeah,
I'm with you.
Fair. We don't have that in the clandestine yet. Yes, you cast some good actors. But the other clandestine are essentially the Keystone Cops. They don't really have their own personalities. Only Najma really does, and she essentially speaks for the crew most of the time. And she's doing a good job.
Yeah, like she's doing the Lord's work.
Yeah,
I mean,
she is. With
she
very
is
little, she's doing a lot.
She is so dynamic.
Yeah.
Every scene she has, you are riveted on her. Like, she is amazing. And God, what she could do if she had been given a little bit more material.
Right, and everyone around her wasn't a one-dimensional lunkhead. Right. These are the things that get a little frustrating when you're watching it. But you do have that sweet moment with Sana, right, where she says, you know, I like to think that 2 people found each other. You know, Muneeba wants to know how it all happened, and Sana just kind of stops the train right there and says, no pun intended. She doesn't know, but she wants to hope that 2 people fell in love and created something bigger than they could have created alone. So, Mike, what do you think about these last 2 scenes? Are you in agreement? The family stuff works, or maybe the clandestine stuff doesn't work as strong? And what do you think of Bruno and Kamran here?
Yeah, overall, I agree. I mean, I wasn't here last week. I actually really liked last week's episode. I thought Kamala coming to Karachi and everything with the family was great. I think that Kareem Red Dagger falls a little bit into like CW category for me, where his acting is good enough that I enjoy him, but I understand Shannon's concerns. But yeah, I thought everything last week was really good. I liked some of the explanation we got about Noor and the clandestine, but I totally agree that it's still a little bit wobbly. But yeah, so then I like I said, and I thought everything this week was really good except till we get to this ending scene. And it's not that it's horrible. Right. It's all perfectly fine. It's not like we're in the category of like, oh shit, they really like went off the rails here. But like, if the clandestine really just want to go through that portal and go home, it's like, all right, fucking go. If you can't go through the portal, that's on you. But this idea that this portal, and I know that there's probably going to be a bigger portal or some bigger thing next week, but that this them trying to go through a portal could cause this big thing, or it could cause their land to invade our land. Like, none of that was really delivered here. And then what Najma does, I'm still not clear on. Like, did she sacrifice herself to activate Kamran?
Yeah.
Or is she somehow trying to take control of Kamran? Or like it didn't seem... Is this was her like one dying lovely moment to like give her son abilities? Like, I'm not quite clear on what it was.
And isn't it confusing, Mike? Because they said in the third episode, Najma says in the third episode, like, we're running out of time. We've got to get back. We can't wait any longer, even though it's been decades.
She says that, yeah.
Yeah, so then what does it mean sending her energy back to Kamran? Because it's still not going through the veil.
Exactly. So, again, I think we're all in agreement that the logic and the specificity around the clandestine is probably the weakest part of this show. Yeah. That being said, Muneeba is the greatest part of this show. Yes, everything she said about find my iPhone and is this spyware for parents and how did I not know about this was gold. And then her showing up was lovely. I mean, them coming in and her finding out. So in the comics, Muneeba also finds out. Muneeba actually figures it out when Miss Marvel, when Kamala does come and finally come clean to her and say, "I'm Miss Marvel." She's like, "Yeah, I know. I figured it out a while ago." So they tweaked it a little bit, but just like in the comics, Muneeba knows now. Does not mean Yusuf knows.
Right.
She does not necessarily mean she runs home and tells him right away. So I think we're in for, and particularly because you end on this lovely moment where like Muneeba's relationship with Sana has really been healed and the three of them are all together and you get this lovely generational, 3 generations of women moment. I think that we're, as we move into Marvels and hopefully more seasons of Miss Marvel and more stuff, you get to play this whole thing of like this mother and daughter that were kind of at odds at the beginning of the series are kind of complicit. And that maybe Muneeba's going to do a little bit of like, oh yeah, no, Kamala's going to go do that thing now. Right. So I give her permission. So I think there's going to be some interesting dynamics there that'll be fun to play. I also thought it was really lovely the way they did the moment where Kamala's necklace broke.
Yes.
And you clearly see the symbol from her costume.
Oh, and the scarf is clearly
going to
be playing.
And that's not necessarily. This is something that's a little bit different from the comics as well. I really do love how the different pieces of her costume are coming from different parts of her life.
Yeah.
That Bruno made her the mask, that Kareem gives her the scarf, that her mom finds the broken necklace and maybe helps make the rest of the costume. Like, I think that's really, really lovely. I think that's actually really, really nice. Kamran getting his abilities aside, Kamran now has basically the abilities he had in the comic as an Inhuman. And I thought the scene with him and Bruno was really, really, really nice. Yeah. Thought that did happen a little quickly as well. Like, it kind of was rushed. But for all that it was rushed, we sort of have all the pieces on the board now. Like, the clandestine, aside from Kamran, are, as far as I can tell, taken care of.
Yeah.
So it's now down
they're all dead. They're all dead.
Yeah. So it's now down to, we've got Kamala, we've got Kareem, we've got damage control.
Yeah.
So where this goes in the finale and how this all rolls out, I don't know. But that's kind of where we're at.
And we have Bruno. Where's Bruno's role?
Or we maybe have a really injured Bruno.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Good point. Yes. I mean, the sad thing is Yusuf can't get his cherry pie anymore from the convenience store.
That's the most sad part for me.
I would think so.
That's what I'm most concerned about.
As someone who loves to occasionally shame eat, those little moments are worth gold in your life, for God's sakes. Yeah, I mean, I think I've made it clear the clandestine stuff is the weakest part. I think all three of us agree with that. It would have nice to have, and it's quizzical, to be honest with you, because this is starting to become a drumbeat. The Ringer did a breakdown of it this morning, talking about and connecting Love and Thunder, which I don't agree with some of their points of views, but the idea that this
phase, I do. I haven't read it, but I'm sure I do.
Yeah, sure. The phase 4 feels a little bit messy, a little bit awkward, a little clumsy, and these were the concerns people had once you were making this transition in this new phase 4, that they weren't gonna. How long can they sustain it? And it's starting to feel like we're veering into Cars 2 territory. We're veering into the.
Okay,
I'm
hold
just saying
on. Hold on. You just whipped out.
I'm just
You
saying
just whipped out the worst of the Pixar movies. Like you didn't go.
But this is when we started to sense that there were cracks and that they could do wrong. And so with Marvel, I think we're sensing a little bit that the bloom is off the rose, because there have been complaints with every one of these Disney Plus shows, and legitimate ones for the most part. And there have been complaints about the movies. Certainly, I hated Multiverse of I grow in my hate of it every time I think about it, and so, but I did like Love and Thunder. So there is an imbalance here that's happening in a way that hasn't happened in the previous phases, even phase 1, when they were still trying to figure out.
I would disagree with this. So I will look. I agree broad strokes, and I'm sure
I'm saying the clandestinate's a simple.
I am more than sure that this will be a Geek Buddies topic in the upcoming weeks. But but I do think that like we live in a little bit of a halo of an Infinity War Endgame halo.
Yes.
And what I mean by that is when you really go back through the MCU, go to your Disney Plus and start scrolling through. It's not like every single one of those movies was a banger. There's stuff to like in a lot of them, but there's also a lot of stuff like, look, until we got to like Killmonger, Thanos, Loki. The one thing that you can give Thor to is that it kind of like put Loki more front and center. Yeah. But like until you got to those guys, Marvel got criticized constantly for kind of having lame cookie cutter villains.
Well, the reverse villains, the defaulting to having the villain be exactly the reverse of the hero with no real, but that's also in the comic. So there's no.
It is, not, but like, but that was, and then they sort of we got nearer to the end. We got into like late phase 3, or we got into like late phase 2, phase 3, and like Marvel just started firing on all cylinders. Right. Lot of credit to the Russo brothers on that. And then they ended so strongly with Infinity War and Endgame, like stuck the landing harder than anything, and we all like screamed in the theater when Anthony Mackie said "On Your Left." So, it was like, that was huge. And so for us, all of that Marvel Cinematic Universe was like, well, yeah, they nailed it. They did it. Yeah. So now we're sort of back at square one again, but they're in a way more complicated place. And I'm not defending them because I actually do agree that it is pretty messy right now.
Yeah.
But I also think that like hindsight is 2020. I think that 5 years from now, depending on what happens, we're either going to go, I had a great run. No, they really didn't do this. Or we're going to be like, holy shit, Secret Wars. Like, it's going to be one or the other. And so if they can pull it off, a lot of these things like the clandestine, like, because even with Miss Marvel, like, the reverse of your argument is people have a lot of complaints about the Disney Plus shows. People have a lot of complaints about the movies in Phase 4. Yeah. But we love Yelena Belova.
Yes.
We're really into the Young Avengers.
Right.
We might not think WandaVision ended perfectly, but holy shit, was that a great love story, and did it level up Wanda? So, like, every one of these things, even though each of these movies, even the ones I dislike, like Multiverse of Madness. I'm not saying there aren't
positive things that are being birthed from these movies and TV shows. I'm just saying that it feels like we're back to square one, and we're relearning the lessons that they had already learned in Phase 1. That's the confusing part for me. Shin?
Yeah, but also, when you think about Phase 1, you think about how many movies were in Phase 1. You had 2 Iron Man movies, you had a Cap movie, you had a Thor movie, and you had an Avengers movie. Only half of them are good. Iron Man 1 is good.
Yes.
Cap is good.
Yes.
Avengers is good. I don't know a ton of people who
Iron Man is good.
I said Iron Man
is.
Oh, okay.
No, but then Iron Man 2 came out. Iron Man 2 is bad. Thor is meh. So I mean, it's not half. I mean, they were batting higher than 500, but also they had Incredible Hulk in there. While I don't think Incredible Hulk was a terrible movie, so yeah, I guess
it's certainly not incredible.
Yeah, they looked at what worked and what didn't, and they pushed forward. Now with Phase 4, they're looking at what works and what doesn't, and there arguably is a good amount that doesn't work. Like at the end of Eternals, when they say the Eternals will return, most of the audience was not on the edge of their seat saying, I can't wait. Even though I didn't think Eternals was a terrible movie. But I think they're looking at what is working and what isn't, and that's how they're going to forge ahead.
But go ahead, John.
No, I was just saying real quick to and I think Shannon you make some great points here to connect up to what we were texting about earlier before we started doing the show. This idea that are they going so far out that it's too much, and even they're having trouble. As much as we love Marvel and want to give them the credit for everything, like maybe even they're going a step too far, going out into space, messing with their own time travel loops and all this. I mean, are we spinning 24, 25 fucking plates, and they're not sure who started spinning what plate and which plate needs to be spun next? It just seems like they're biting off more than they can chew, and it's starting to show. Not starting to show, it's been showing, I guess.
I think that there's truth to that, but I also think that Marvel's biggest strength, and this is what they do differently than Kathleen Kennedy, and it's what they do differently than DC, and it's what they do differently than everybody else, is that despite what all of us are saying on the outside, and despite what we say we like, what we don't like, they see it through. Like, they didn't look at Thor and go, maybe we need to recast Loki. They didn't look at Iron Man 2, which is arguably one of the worst Marvel movies, and go, you know what? I guess this Natasha Romanoff thing didn't work for us. Let's cut our losses. Right. Like, even the stuff that's not good in the MCU, they took those characters that a lot of whom were not introduced in the best way, or a lot of whom didn't work initially, and they just kept going, and they kind of kept working as they went. And so I do think that I'm glad that they're continuing to do whatever it is they're doing. I think not all of it works. And I also think that John is potentially right, that they might have bit off more than they could chew, that getting to the Infinity Gauntlet is one thing. Getting to Secret Wars, multiversal incursions, gods, celestials, eternities, like it's a lot. And just like with the clandestine, it's a lot that's very loosely defined. So I think this is where they could run into trouble. So it'll be interesting to see.
Conveniently loosely defined. Yeah.
They didn't recast Loki, but they recast Hulk and War Machine.
That's true.
Well, they recast Hulk. Yes. War Machine, that's not their fault.
I don't know. I don't know what happened, so I'm not willing to put fault on either side. We weren't involved in those negotiations. So
I was.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
Hold on.
Robert? Anyway, all right. Let's wrap up here because we were talking about Ms. Marvel, not Marvel overall. Final thoughts on this episode as we go into the season 1 finale. If they haven't announced there's season 2, but possibly a series or season 1 finale. Mike, final thoughts?
I'm sure I'm gonna really, really like it. I think that the issue with the clandestine and what the villain is going to be interesting to see how the season ends, because the penultimate episode leads to the finale, and the finale is the big epic battle, and I'm not quite sure what the epic battle is going to be here. So it'll be interesting. I am 100% sure that the emotional stuff, the family stuff, and Kamala deciding that she is now a superhero and is officially Miss Marvel is going to be great. Yep. Would I love a Carol Danvers cameo? Wouldn't be mad about it, but maybe they're saving that for Marvels, so we will see.
Yeah, all right. A Spectrum 2, maybe.
Maybe.
Shannon, thoughts? Final thoughts here?
Yeah, I mean, this is probably kind of in the middle tier of the episodes. I mean, it's not as strong as 1 and 2, but I think it's better than 3 and 4.
Yeah.
In terms of the finale, like, yeah, this is the big fight. This is the big action set piece. It seems like Kamala has to either bust her friends out of damage control, or I think that's it. I mean,
or fight Kamala eventually.
Or if Kamran is taken, and I'm not saying that I think this is what's the case, but if Kamran is either taken over by Najma or decides that to avenge his mom or to do whatever needs to open up the portal.
Yeah.
I think that portal is gone. I think this is all. I think it's all damage control.
Okay.
But I do think that feels.
It's lame.
Smaller than I would have wanted it to be. So
I agree.
That's where it's. I think that all the emotional stuff they'll hit landing on, but who she's actually fighting, I'm not quite clear on.
Yeah, very true. All right, yeah, I agree with these two gentlemen and their thoughts overall. Look. As I said, everything in the first 20 minutes was gold, absolute gold. More of that, please. And in the minutes with Muneeba and Sana and Kamala, all of that was great. And so more of that. And hopefully, because they've laid the groundwork of the family so powerfully throughout this entire season, that when we get to the finale, that's going to be a real launching off point. That's going to be something that comes back multiple times throughout that episode to kind of reaffirm why Kamala is doing the things that she's doing. And then eventually when she uses her powers in the way that she uses her powers, she stands defiant by the end, now fully embracing who she is, fully embracing the history of her and her family involved with this bangle. And is there a second bangle, right? There's supposed to be a second bangle. So where is the mystery of the second bangle? How is that going to show up in here? Because that is Najma's bangle is the second bangle, I think. So where is that bangle going to show up in this whole thing? So we shall see.
Najma didn't have a second bangle.
She didn't have a bangle?
No,
Sure,
they talked about they needed it.
Oh,
When they find it on the arm of the Kree,
Right.
they only have the one bangle
That's
in
right,
there.
right. So there is a bangle missing. So maybe there's a mystery to be solved in the second bangle.
Or it got
here.
turned into 10 rings.
Oh yeah, that's possible too. I didn't think about that too. Speaking of spinning plates, there you go. All right, we shall find out for sure in the finale next week. So thank you all so much for watching this spoiler review here of episode 5 of Ms. Marvel. We appreciate it madly. Shannon, what do we have to tell them?
Yeah, if you'd like to follow us on social media. On Twitter, it's geek_buddies. On Instagram, @the_geek_buddies. Sorry, I think my brain just skipped for a second. If you would like to follow me on social media, on Twitter, it's @Shannon_McClung. On Instagram, it's Shannon the Geek Buddy. If you would like to follow Mr. Vogel, it is @MKToon. If you would like to follow Mr. Roca, it is @TheRocaSays.
Mikey?
Look, if you like the clandestine, don't like the clandestine, don't know how you feel about it, it doesn't matter. We take all opinions here, and we want to keep doing what we're doing, and here is how you can help us keep doing it. Definitely hit the like button below and subscribe to Johnny's Outlaw Nation page. Check out all the amazing and nerdy and weird and crazy content that he has got going on there. Leave your comments below. What did you think of the episode? And hey, while we're going for it, what do you think of Phase 4? How's it going for you? What do you think's going on? I don't know. Let us know your thoughts down below. If you are listening to us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or anywhere the podcasts are available, leave us some stars and leave us some comments. It helps us go up in the rankings so more people can find us and join in all the fun. And if you are not going to do that, the other thing that you can do that really is the best thing that you can do is retweet this video, post it on your socials, and send it to your friends and tell them to hang out with your buddies, the Geek Buddies.
There you go. And another good thing you can do is head on over to carbonhealth.com, who powers and sponsors us here on the Geek Buddies in the Outlaw Nation. We appreciate them madly. Head on over there if you've got any healthcare questions, concerns, or needs. They got 125 locations nationwide, 80 locations in California alone, including the Bay Area, Los Angeles, Sacramento, and North San Diego, where I'm at for sure. They've got urgent care. They got COVID testing. They got primary care in a lot of their clinics. And they also want healthcare to be convenient and accessible. They know your healthcare goals can change. They change with you to create a plan for you specifically. It's not broad stuff. They really want to work with you. They take care of you and create a plan that works for your specific body to help you get in the best shape possible that you can. And they continue to partner with us because Carbon Health genuinely cares about positive communities who engage with each other over the love of culture and expressions of life. And don't forget to download that app of theirs to have a doc in your pocket.
Shannon, you can get that brain skip checked out.
Holy shit. Wow. Anyway, all right, let's get out of here. We love you madly. Thanks so much. Have yourselves a great weekend, and we'll talk to you next time with another brand new episode or review here from the
Geek
Buddies.